Hello guys, welcome to another video here at Relab Academy. We're gonna talk about a question that I get a lot, which is what's the difference between design thinking and design sprint? I'm gonna talk to you about that in a second. Before we get into it though, I just wanna talk about this jumper right here. I know you're thinking, hey Alvin, you don't usually wear that. What's that all about? So it says, patience, enjoy your journey. It's one of 4 different kinds. We're doing this thing called relabgoods.com where we come up with our own internal project. As a matter of fact, I'll use some of these as our examples later on down the track in the different videos when we're reviewing certain things. But essentially, it's a project that we have here at Relab Studios. We were inspired by the events that has happened recently, you know, COVID 2020, moving into 2021 and all of that stuff. But it's essentially creating a project around self-care and just being able to encourage everyone to be a little bit more resilient, be happy with who you are, what you have, having gratitude, having patience is something else that is quite important, I feel. And you know what? I got free coffees because I'm wearing this stuff, so you might get that too. So if you're interested, go and have a look at relabgoods.com. There are different types of products that we have up there. But the great thing is up to 50% of our profits goes to charity. And in this particular one, we donate it to Reach Out Australia, which is an online mental health service that is very accessible for everyone, particularly for youth, young people, and their parents here in Australia. Now that's out of the way, let's get into some design thinking stuff, eh? So what's the difference between design thinking and design sprint? First of all, let's have a look at what each of them means. Now, in a very basic form, design thinking is a set of principles used to help solve complex problems. Now, design thinking has been around for ages. IDEO popularized it. But we can use design thinking principles, tools, methods to solve a lot of complex problems that are available out there. It's basically, you know, allowing you to think systematically, do it in a process that, you know, it moves forward in a way, but at the same time, you're moving with clarity because you're doing it in a very structured way. Now, if we talk about design sprint itself, it's basically a much more condensed and compact version of design thinking. It's basically using the same methodology, it's using the same type of tools, but just simplified a little bit more and very much structured. So if we look at design sprint, it takes design thinking principles, condenses them into a structured and most importantly, time-bound process. When we say time-bound, design sprints typically run for 4 or 5 days. And after that, that's it, it's done. So the key phrase here is structured, and another key point here is time-bound. Comparing to design thinking, the design sprint process is so much more structured. It's almost like a step-by-step recipe. If you think about, you know, wanting to make the best lasagna, then the design thinking process is like you going into a supermarket, having so many different varieties of options, you know, different pasta sheets, different types of meat and tomato sauce and all of that stuff. Whereas the design sprint tells you what the recipe is, you know, get this particular pasta sheet, this type of brand, this type of olive oil, whatever it is. So that's the difference, you know, it's just so much more clarity and so much more structured. And you know exactly that the lasagna is going to be done in, you know, 2 hours time. Whereas in design thinking, it's all up to you and it's so much more general. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's have a look at what generally comes under design thinking in terms of the different activities that goes in there. So the design thinking is about a question on where designers or people, not necessarily just designers, but whoever facilitates design thinking will come up with a motivation on how might we be more systematic and creative in our process to solve this particular problem that is quite complex. So a lot of the activities that fall under design thinking are co-design, idea validation, user research here, prototyping, immersion, problem framing, user testing, concept creation, so on and so forth. Feel free to screenshot this if you want to. Before we get into what design sprint is though, I think it will be very important for you to understand what Agile means because they somehow link with each other. I'll also drop a link down below in our description on the difference between design thinking and Agile to give you a bit more context. But before we get into design sprint, let's have a look at Agile. So Agile methodology is oftentimes used in the development process. So if you've seen our previous video about design thinking and Agile and how to marry them together, design thinking is a process to solve the problem, come out with a solution, and Agile is the execution process where you go into rounds of Agile sprints, Scrum and all of that methods, and be able to execute realistic products and deliverables in a very quick and nimble way. And that's why Agile is so popular, is because it's quick, it's nimble, it's very adaptive to different situations. But if you look at this diagram over here, this Venn diagram here, then there are certain activities that cross path between design thinking and Agile. So Agile, covers things like concept approval, design reviews, execution, development, change management, release planning. Those are like very Agile stuff to look into. But there are these stuff here in the middle, which is collaboration, project kickoff, user testing, concept creation, stakeholder management. That's almost a cross path, a gray area between design thinking and Agile. And when they're combined together, oftentimes that's where the collaboration happens between Agile teams and designers who might have implemented design thinking into the system. Now that we've covered that, I'm going to get into design sprints. So where does design sprints fall into? It's a much more compact, condensed process that combines all of this together. So if we look at this area right here, we've got things like co-design, idea validation. These are elements of design thinking that is taken into design sprint. User research, prototyping, collaboration, project kickoff, user testing. And there are elements of Agile that belongs to Agile and Design Sprint, but not necessarily design thinking. And we would argue that's, concept approval and design reviews. Why do I put concept approval and design reviews under design sprint but not design thinking? Is because oftentimes in practice, design thinking is very loose. You're presented with so many different tools and options for you to work with, but there's no end to it. And that's why the process could go on forever. I guess it's great if you've got a luxury of budget working for a really large company, but in a small startup, or if you're just starting out, or if you're an agency, you're trying to get something done quickly, then the design sprint will work very, very well because it handpicks certain activities that will move you forward, and it's a step-by-step process that is so clear that it finally leads you to concept approval, design reviews, and be able to execute without having to discount the importance of user research, prototyping, all of that stuff, all of the meaty, juicy stuff that comes with design thinking are being brought into design sprint. So again, feel free to take a screenshot of this, but hopefully that makes things clear for you. And if you do have any questions, do let me know. I'm more than happy to answer. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and share it with your friends. Thank you, guys.